That speech also becomes significant, coming as it is on the eve of very crucial polls that kick off this week itself. So the Prime Minister defending on a number of very important issues. But another story that we'd like to take up today is what is happening in the auto sector. So as a matter of routine, we get auto data every month, and we get this from the side of the manufacturers, we get this from the side of the dealers as well, which gives us a picture of how auto sales are progressing in the country. Now, one of the reasons why we as business journalists also track this one indicator is because it gives us a sense of demand in the economy, how far the economy is moving, are we seeing growth? And it's considered a pretty clear indicator and pretty accurate indicator of what is happening in the economy. In that context, January has not been great for the auto sector compared to January 2021 or even January 2022. Now, this is quite significant because if I take January 2020 as a starting point just before the pandemic truly hit all of us, January 2021 was already far behind, but we had seen some recovery. We expected to see fair amount of recovery through 2021, but coming to January 2022 and we have slid back. We're 18% below Jan 2020 figures. In fact, my colleague Utkarsh Chaturvedi is breaking down all the numbers.
Well, if you look at the numbers, there has to be two comparisons which needs to be made. First one is from the last year, which is Y&Y recovery, and then you talk about pre-COVID levels. Let me start with the two-wheeler category because that is where the demand issue is. That is where you're realizing that there is a problem with the rural demand. Because if you look at Jan 2022, you have sold around 10,17,000 vehicles, and in that, Y&Y you're down 13%, but if you look at a pre-pandemic level, you're talking about a 20% drop still. So you are yet to recover a lot of ground when you speak about pre-pandemic levels. And mind you, when you speak about the supply side crisis, it's only for four-wheelers, not for the two-wheeler side. And on the four-wheeler side, what the story says is from Jan 2022, you're talking about 2,58,000 vehicles. From there, 21 is 2,87,000, but Jan 20 is 2,94,000. So a 10% drop in when you speak about 22 to 21. But from 22 to 20, that means pre-pandemic levels, you're talking about a 12% drop. The only place where you've seen, pre-pandemic positivity is in the CV space. In the CV space, if you look, you're speaking about 67,000 numbers from 56,227, so you're 20% up. But if you look at pre-pandemic levels, in the MCV, you are up 1.56%. In the heavy commercial vehicles, you are up almost 3.65%. But in the LCV segment, you're still down 16%. That's why you're down almost 9% in the CV segment as well. And all total, if you speak about pre-pandemic levels, you're almost down 18% at this point of time, according to the FADA data.
Hormazd Sorabjee joining us on the show this evening. He's editor of Autocar India. Gaurav Vangaal, Associate Director, LV Forecasting, IHS Markit, with us on the show. And Vinkesh Gulati, President of FADA. Welcome to all of you and thank you so much for speaking with us. Mr. Gulati, let me begin with you. We are basing our analysis on your numbers. Do you think that this is an accurate way to read the situation, that the auto sector as a whole is still quite some way behind pre-pandemic levels? And the last couple of years, even before pandemic, was not that great for the sector.
Yeah, so thanks for having me on the show. And you have called it correctly. It is real, not a good score as of now. And the retail data, what FADA is regularly publishing, is the genuine registration data on the ground. It comes from the customers who have bought the vehicles. So it's the actual economical situation on the ground, and the data is very, very. If you regularly follow it, clearly shows the economy level which our customer feels. So, like we have been always saying that the rural economy or the entry-level segment of customers are still going through financial distress, or their overall mind state is not positive, which is clearly evident by how entry-level two-wheeler segment is reacting, or even entry-level cars are reacting. So basically, the FADA data what we published is a clear indication of how the infrastructure is going, which affects the commercial vehicle sales, and the two-wheeler sales affects the overall economy level, what we see from the rural and even to the level of tier 2, tier 3 towns.
Yeah. Hormazd, if I were to come to you on some of the reasons now in the passenger vehicle, to the kind of economic impact that the pandemic has had, which has hit people's ability to buy.
Yeah. Well, I think I agree with Vinkesh. I think the fundamental area where the economy and even the market has been hit is really at the budget end. The rural markets have been hit, and clearly we've seen that in the very weak demand for two-wheelers and the entry-level segments. Interestingly, in cars, the entry-level segments, they don't have a chip shortage, so that is the actual demand that there is, because the entry-level cars don't require so many chips in them. So, that's very clear that that segment definitely has been hit. Clearly, lower strata are obviously suffering more from the pandemic as you go higher up. But I think I'd also like to say that, don't forget January, we were in the thick of the third wave as well. So I think not so much from a health issue, but a lot of absenteeism. Maybe Vinkesh will bear this out, but, even sales staff, someone's obviously got the virus, family members have got the virus. And clearly, let's say a lot of, let's say, manpower issues in the month of January compared to Jan 21, when actually we were coming out of the first wave. We had no idea the second wave was just going to be upon us. It was just before that. We were in a very confident mood. And I think that kind of reflected. So I think, a month, comparing the months, you may not be able to get the long-term trend. I think one trend that is definitely emerging is that, the lower end of the market is definitely struggling. Upper end, there is more demand, but then again, those products need more chips, and that is a supply chain issue. So really not a good position the industry is in right now.
So, which is why we didn't just compare it to Jan 2021, because as you rightly said, Hormazd, that there were other conditions of a third wave in January of this year. But I think it's a fair benchmark to look at 2020, just before the pandemic began. Gaurav, if I can just get your view on this and just what the interpretation of the data should be telling us. Is it safe to say that the pandemic impact, which may have receded significantly in some other areas, has not in the auto sector, where the narrative has been that we've seen great demand? But is it really great demand if we're still about 18-20% below pre-pandemic levels?
No, I think it's not a great demand, because we're still at the lower than the pre-pandemic levels. But one thing is very clear: what we are receiving insights from every corner, that there are multiple bookings are happening at the car side also. Right now, we are not able to meet the demand. That's very clear because of the supply chain issue. But somehow we are expecting that things will slow down in the second half. If we can able to produce whatever the demand is there in the market, I would say that there will be an issue in the second half. Because if we see the cars have become expensive, at one point of time, there will be a price elasticity, which is going to play a role here. There is an erupting issue. What the lead indicators are telling us, like Mr. Vinkesh has just mentioned, that there's entry-level cars have already started facing issues in the retail side. So I would say, at one point when we meet the demand, then there will be another start of issue. And one more important thing I would like to say: the semiconductor issue is not over yet from the production side. We have recently seen, as per IHS market analysis, that there is a flood happened in the end of the end of the December and the start of the January in Malaysia, where there were significant damage happened to some of the tier 1 suppliers, and there is a force majeure clause has already been raised. We are already looking at the data right now in India also, where non-production days has been called already. in the first week of the February. So this is going to sustain for a while. But yes, whatever you have mentioned, that we are expecting that after we meet this demand, then there might be a problem coming to the upper segment also.
Oh, is it? So Vinkesh, let me come into a little bit of detail, because we've talked about auto sales overall, but like we've mentioned in our report as well, commercial vehicles are still doing better. Your four-wheelers, we can look at it as a demand-supply mismatch. Is the big problem actually in the two-wheeler space?
Tamanna, frankly, like Gaurav said, the big picture is that overall demand is not in the right shape. So two-wheeler, obviously, it is very, very clearly evident because two-wheeler overall, we have been seeing double-digit degrowth for long. I don't exactly remember, it's been now 16, 18 months, except for 1 or 2 months in between, we are seeing a double-digit degrowth. It's quite evident in two-wheeler because two-wheeler is more based on rural markets. The entry-level products are sold to the lower level, or you can say the middle class and the lower class of the people, where bigger distress is there because of the COVID. No doubt it was started before COVID also, but we had expected that to cover up in a month or two, but it has now been extended. So overall, because the entry-level cars are also not doing good, two-wheelers is also not doing good. So full passenger cars are doing good as of now because of the new launches that we have seen for the past 2 years, and the customers who have been instigated because of the such of good features, such good models coming up. So it's not a organic demand what we are seeing. It's being motivated by regular product launch in the higher segment of the car. Whereas if we talk of the entry level, we haven't seen very good launches there.
Okay, Hormazd, let me just get your assessment. Sure. Let me just get your assessment, Hormazd. Do you see these conditions persisting? I mean, semiconductor shortage was supposed to have eased by now. We know that wait times have gone down, but we can't be sure whether this will continue into the rest of the year. Maybe demand will return as the economy recovers, especially we've stopped restrictions. Hopefully we'll not have another wave. So that is, no one knows what's really going to happen. So do you think that things will get better for the auto sector through the year, or there's some hard times ahead?
No, I still think there are headwinds. I think I completely agree with Vinkesh on the lower end of the segment, two-wheelers and entry-level cars. I think there's no debate on that. I think we are seeing other consumer dynamics coming into play. I mean, for one, cars have become much more expensive than they were for whatever reason, commodity prices, meeting compliance, all that sort of thing. We've also seen a thinning of choice. I think people don't realize this. There have been fewer launches. We've had companies like Ford exiting. Now, okay, Ford may have been small, very few percentage, but again, a whole range of vehicles has gone. Within model ranges, people are, because it's so expensive to launch multiple variants, they are thinning down the number of variants. So fundamentally, choice has also become a lot less for the customer. And, the intensity of launches is not as much as we've seen. I mean, last year, we can say we saw about 19 all new model launches vis-a-vis 26 the year before. So there's a lot, of this also coming into play. So the incentive to buy a car also is not as strong as it used to be, even for some people who can afford it. But, again, on this demand-supply mismatch, it's very hard to tell because bookings are coming in. We really don't know where the ceiling for demand is until the semiconductor issue gets sorted out. And I don't see it getting sorted out for most part of this year, to be honest, because it is a genuine capacity issue now. The demand for them has shot through the roof, fundamentally driven by the demand for consumer electronics. And, putting in capacity, you can't do it overnight. It takes time. I see even 2022 being a year of shortage.
Yeah. Wow, so that's some serious headwinds there. So a combination of factors, semiconductors as far as the four-wheelers are concerned, rural demand being a bit subdued as far as the two-wheelers are concerned, but an important sector that will need some demand coming back over this year. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us for your insights on this deep dive. We'll take a very short break at this point.